Chapter 1. The Call to Arms. It was a calm evening, the light of the setting sun casting a warm glow over the newly completed workshop. Gunnar and Eli were reviewing their latest creation, a set of enchanted armor capable of deflecting both physical and magical attacks. The sound of hammers and the hum of energy from the starlight gem had become a familiar backdrop in the workshop, signaling their progress. But the peace was shattered when Sofia burst into the room, her face grim and her eyes filled with urgency. "Black Dawn!" she panted, her breath coming in short gasps. "They're here! They're staging for an attack! Close! Too close!" Gunnar immediately stood, the weight of her words sinking in. "How close?" he asked, his voice calm but laced with tension. Sofia took a deep breath. "Just beyond the forest. I scouted the area with a few contacts from the department. It's not just a small gathering, it's an army. They're preparing for something big, and they've got powerful magic backing them up. We don't have much time." Gunnar's jaw tightened as he processed the information. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. Black Dawn was making their move, and they couldn't afford to be caught off guard. Without their artifacts, Black Dawn was weaker, but they were still dangerous. The human operatives were fanatical, trained for war, and those few demons were enough to cause chaos. Gunnar knew they had to strike now before Black Dawn could regroup and plan their next move. Gunnar's voice was a cold command. "We hit them before they're ready. This ends tonight." Gunnar slammed his fist down on the table, activating the communication runes that hummed through the walls. His voice echoed through the workshop, reaching every member of the pack wherever they were. "Pack, assemble. We have Black Dawn in our sights. It's time to finish this." The message was simple, but it carried the weight of finality. Within minutes, the pack began to converge on the workshop. Ashley arrived first, her wolf beta by her side, the large grey wolf moving silently through the underbrush. Her sharp eyes scanned the area as she nodded to Gunnar. "We're ready." Next came Karina, her enchanted katana gleaming faintly as she stepped from the shadows. Desera followed, her prosthetic leg moving soundlessly as she checked her sniper rifle. Bianca was close behind, acting as Desera's spotter and protector, her eyes sharp and alert. Jewel, the medic, entered last, her pack filled with medical supplies, her demeanor calm but focused. As the pack assembled, Sofia took her place next to Gunnar. "Their forces are mostly human now," she explained, "but they're still well armed, and a few demons are in command. We can't underestimate them." Gunnar's expression was grim. "We won't!" Alpha, the massive dire wolf bonded to Gunnar, stood silently by his side, his eyes glowing faintly with supernatural energy. The bond between them pulsed with power, their shared abilities ready to be unleashed. Around them, the pack wore their modern tactical armor, runes glowing softly, and their cloaks of enhanced stealth, making them nearly invisible in the dark. Each member of the team carried their silver daggers, enchanted with the power of the starlight gem, capable of killing demons and trapping their essence. "We hit them fast," Gunnar said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Take out their leaders first, then crush the rest." The pack moved like shadows into the forest, their senses heightened, their cloaks making them nearly invisible as they closed in on Black Dawn's staging area. The enemy might have lost their artifacts, but they were still dangerous, and they were about to learn just how dangerous the pack could be. Chapter 2. The Approach. The forest was alive with tension as the pack moved swiftly through the trees, their footsteps silent, their presence undetected. Gunnar led the way, Alpha at his side, their movements synchronized as if they were one. Desera took position first, climbing silently into a sniper's perch with Bianca beside her, scanning the area below. Karina and Ashley flanked Gunnar, their hands ready on their weapons, their wolves, Beta and Alpha, in perfect sync with their every step. Through the underbrush, they could see the faint glow of fires and the outlines of tents. Black Dawn's forces were organized but smaller than before. Without their artifacts, they had lost much of their supernatural edge, but the human operatives were still highly trained and heavily armed. And among them, looming in the background, were the last of Black Dawn's demons, hulking, monstrous creatures, but fewer in number than they had been before. Gunner's voice came out low, barely above a whisper. "Take out the demons first. Without them, their chain of command falls apart. After that, we finish off the rest." He turned to Ashley, his second in command. "You and Beta hit them from the left. Karina, take the right. I'll go through the center with Alpha. DeSera, cover us." Ashley nodded, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We'll cut through them like butter." As soon as the first crack of DeSera's sniper rifle echoed through the forest, all hell broke loose. Her bullet struck one of the demons square in the forehead, the creature's body crumpling instantly as its essence was trapped by the starlight-infused round. Before Black Dawn could even react, Gunner was already moving. He charged forward with Alpha by his side, the ground shaking with each step. The Starbreaker fired with precision, tearing through the remaining demons. He moved like a force of nature, fast, brutal, and utterly merciless. Each shot found its mark, cutting down demon after demon. Alpha leapt ahead, ripping through the enemy's ranks with supernatural ferocity, his teeth glowing faintly as he shredded through human operatives. Ashley and Beta struck next. The grey wolf darted through the trees like a shadow, tearing through the humans with brutal efficiency, while Ashley slashed her way through the ranks with her dagger, her enhanced senses guiding every movement. Karina was a blur of motion, her katana flashing in the dim light as she sliced through enemy after enemy. She moved through the chaos like a ghost, each strike precise, each kill silent. DeSera remained high above, her rifle steady as she picked off targets, while Bianca called out positions and ensured no one got close enough to threaten their perch. The battle raged on, but as the pack pushed deeper into Black Dawn's ranks, a new wave of operatives, more organized, more deadly, rushed forward. These were no mere foot soldiers. They were elite, trained for war, and they moved with brutal efficiency, cutting off the pack's advance. Gunner could feel the shift. The pack's momentum slowed, and the enemy began to press back. He locked eyes with Ashley, who was fighting side by side with Beta, her grey wolf companion and Alpha's mate. They moved in perfect sync, each attack landing with deadly precision. But then, it happened. So fast, so brutal. A streak of gunfire from a Black Dawn sharpshooter cut through the chaos, and Beta let out a gut-wrenching yelp as the bullets ripped through her side. The massive grey wolf collapsed, her body skidding across the dirt as blood poured from the wound. "Beta!" Ashley screamed, her voice filled with horror as she dropped to her knees beside her fallen companion. Her hands trembled as she tried to assess the damage, but it was clear. Beta was gravely injured, her breaths shallow and laboured. The fight wasn't over, and more Black Dawn operatives closed in, their rifles aimed squarely at Ashley and the defenceless Beta. Ashley stood, her body shaking with fury and desperation, gripping her dagger tightly. She was cornered, surrounded by the enemy. Beta lay behind her, barely clinging to life, and the operatives moved in, circling like predators. The enemy closed the circle, ready to strike. Chapter 3. The Charge. Before the Black Dawn soldiers could fire, a low, savage growl tore through the trees. Alpha, the dire wolf, and Gunner's spirit animal came charging through the darkness like a force of nature. His massive form blurred with supernatural energy, his eyes blazing with fury. He was unstoppable, and his anger was primal, driven not just by the battle but by the sight of his mate, Beta, lying injured on the ground. As Alpha crashed into the enemy line, something extraordinary happened. Gunner, running alongside him, felt their connection surge to a level he had never experienced before. His bond with Alpha pulsed with raw power, and the air around him shimmered with an almost ethereal light. For the first time, Gunner could feel the full power of the dire wolf flowing through him. His muscles tensed, his senses sharpened, and suddenly, a glowing aura shaped like the form of a dire wolf appeared around his body. The translucent wolf-like figure towered over him, moving with his every step, an extension of his soul, of his connection to Alpha. Together they were no longer separate beings. They were one. The sight was terrifying and awe-inspiring. The soldiers faltered, eyes wide with fear, as they watched Gunnar move through them with the spirit of the dire wolf blazing around him. Alpha was a force of nature at his side, his massive jaws tearing through the enemy ranks. But it was Gunnar's aura, the manifestation of his bond with Alpha, that sent waves of panic through the Black Dawn forces. With each strike of Gunnar's silver dagger, the glowing form of the dire wolf seemed to snap and snarl at his enemies, biting through their defences, shredding their will to fight. The ground trembled beneath his feet as he moved, his strikes more brutal, more precise than ever before. The aura around Gunnar grew brighter as the battle raged on, his connection to Alpha amplifying every movement. His body burned with supernatural strength, his senses so heightened that every enemy appeared as if in slow motion. Alpha's fury and Gunnar's rage became one, the dire wolf's power coursing through his veins. No one could stand against them. Gunnar's Starbreaker fired in rhythmic bursts, tearing through the Black Dawn operatives, while his dagger flashed in the dim light, each strike guided by the primal instincts of the dire wolf. He moved faster than humanly possible, the spirit of the wolf guiding every motion. At his side, Alpha was a blur of teeth and claws, fighting with the ferocity of a creature that had nothing left to lose. The bond between them had never been stronger, and together they tore through the Black Dawn soldiers with an unstoppable force. Ashley was still fighting, but her energy was draining fast. Surrounded, with Beta injured and out of the fight, she deflected blows from the Black Dawn operatives with her dagger, but her desperation was beginning to show. Her movements were slowing, her breathing ragged. Just as a Black Dawn operative raised his rifle to finish her, Gunnar emerged from the shadows like a storm unleashed. His face was set in a fierce scowl, his body radiating the raw power of the bond he shared with Alpha. In one swift, brutal motion, Gunnar slashed through the soldier's chest with his silver dagger, sending the enemy crashing to the ground. Another soldier lunged at Gunnar, but before he could land a blow, Alpha was there, his massive jaws clamping down on the enemy's arm, crushing bone with a sickening snap. Gunnar turned to Ashley, his eyes blazing with the power that coursed through him. "You're not alone," he growled, his voice low and filled with fury. "We fight together." Ashley nodded, her breath ragged but her resolve steeled once again. With Gunnar and Alpha at her side, she found renewed strength. Together, they launched back into the fight, cutting through the remaining soldiers with lethal precision. But Beta still lay wounded on the battlefield.